They say the land out here remembers. The wind doesn't just rustle the corn, it whispers. Whispers about things buried beneath the soil, things that should have stayed buried, and sins that left a mark so deep they haunt the earth itself. In the middle of those fields, where the sun barely reaches and the night falls too fast, stands a house. Just a house, some would say. But the ones who live nearby, they never go near it. Not anymore. Jackson Weiler had never heard the stories. He had no idea about the farmhouse, no knowledge of the Granger family that had vanished without a trace in 1971, or the eerie tales that the locals still muttered about the land. All Jackson saw when he drove through the twisting country roads was a place to rest, a spot for shelter from the coming storm. He had been on the road for hours, his truck sputtering with every mile. As he rounded a bend, he saw the farmhouse standing alone in the middle of nowhere. The paint had long since faded and peeled. The porch sagged, and the windows were blind with dust, but it was a roof over his head. It wasn't until he stepped onto the porch that he noticed the silence, the kind of silence that was heavy, almost oppressive. The air was thick, the kind of air that had been trapped in a place too long. But Jackson shrugged it off. He knocked once, no answer. He knocked again. Still nothing. The wind howled through the trees, and Jackson's grip on his duffel bag tightened. The door creaked open, and there he was, inside. Immediately, Jackson felt the temperature drop. It wasn't the kind of cold that you'd expect in an old house. No, this was something else. The kind of cold that seeped into your bones. The cold that reminded you this house had secrets. He could feel it in the stillness, the kind of stillness that comes only when something is waiting. He turned on the lights, and they flickered once, then died. He cursed under his breath and fumbled with his phone, but no signal. The house was dark, almost suffocating. The air tasted stale. Every footstep echoed in the narrow hallway, bouncing off walls lined with photographs. Old family portraits stared down at him, their eyes dull and lifeless. Most of the frames were cracked or covered in grime, but one portrait caught his eye. The Granger family, father, mother, and two children. Their smiles looked almost unnatural, too wide, too stiff. The mother's eyes. There was something about them, a shadow, a warning. He didn't want to think about it too much. This was just a place. He could rest here. He set his bag down in the corner, trying to shake the uneasy feeling creeping up his spine. Then came the noise. A thump, soft, like a floorboard creaking under the weight of something heavy, something moving. He paused, listening intently. Another thump, followed by the unmistakable sound of footsteps, light and deliberate, moving above him. Jackson's heart skipped a beat. He was alone. He had to be. His eyes darted around the room, searching for the source, but saw nothing. He shook his head, dismissing the noise as nothing more than an old house settling. But then, another step. Closer. He grabbed the rusted fire poker near the hearth, the only weapon within reach, and made his way toward the stairs. The old wooden stairs groaned beneath his weight, each step louder than the last. As he reached the top of the stairs, he saw a long, narrow hallway. At the far end, there was a door that looked different. It was old, yes, but something about it seemed deliberately out of place, as if it had been sealed for years, just waiting for someone to come along. The door was locked, but beside it, leaning against the wall, was a crowbar. Jackson felt a sudden urge to open it. He pried the door loose, the wood scraping against the frame as the lock broke with a final loud snap. It swung open, revealing a room so cold that it felt like stepping into another world. The harvest room. The name hit Jackson like a slap, but the air in that room made his skin crawl. It was smaller than the other rooms in the house, but its oppressive chill made it feel like a tomb. The walls were covered in blackened handprints, child-sized, small, and fragile, but burned into the plaster as if they had been pressed there with great force. The prints were deep, as if they had been scorched into the wall with fire, and the rocking chair in the center of the room, it moved, slowly, back and forth. No breeze, no air, just the chair rocking, as if waiting for someone. Jackson took a step back, his breath catching in his throat. The whisper came then, soft but clear. We were the harvest. It wasn't his imagination. He could hear it. A faint voice, but it felt real. The words didn't make sense, not at first. But the more he thought about it, the more the house seemed to come alive, whispering secrets from the past. Jackson backed away from the chair, but his foot caught on something. A small wooden toy. A dollar. Its head twisted unnaturally as it rolled away from him. Suddenly, the door slammed shut, the sound echoing through the room, rattling the old glass in the window. Jackson was trapped. Panic surged through him as he ran to the door and tried to force it open. No use. It wouldn't budge. Then, the photos. The photographs in his bag. He hadn't brought any. But now, when he reached for his bag, there they were. Old, yellowed pictures. Family portraits. The Granger family. And in everyone, Jackson saw himself. Standing next to them, smiling, his hand resting on the father's shoulder, their eyes dark and hollow. Faces changed with every glance. Their smiles widened, stretching, pulling apart. The more he stared at them, the more he felt wrong. Like he was already a part of this place. Get out, Jackson whispered to himself, his breath coming in short gasps. But before he could turn to run, the air thickened. The shadows stretched, dark tendrils snaking around his ankles, pulling him toward the center of the room. The walls seemed to close in, pressing on his chest. And then, just like that, the vision came. The past. The house. Alive. Vibrant. The Granger family sitting at a dinner table. The father at the head, the mother next to him, their children laughing. But the air in the room wasn't right. The walls seemed to whisper too, murmuring secrets Jackson couldn't understand. The father stood pulling an old crate toward him and began chanting words in a language he couldn't recognize. The family's smiles stretched. The children began to cry. Jackson wanted to look away, but he couldn't. Blood began to pour from the altar, from the cracks in the walls. Screams echoed through the house. But it wasn't the family screaming, it was something else, something older. And then, as quickly as it had started, the vision was gone. Jackson found himself back in the room, gasping, his hands trembling. He turned and saw them. Two children standing in the corner, their eyes dark and empty, staring at him. No smile, no movement, just stillness. The room was dead quiet except for the sound of the rocking chair still swaying back and forth. One of the children stepped forward, the voice cold and detached. It's your season now. Suddenly, Jackson was pulled back into another vision, this time of blood. The family had made a deal, a bargain with the land, to keep the crops growing, to keep the harvest alive. But it came at a cost. The children had been the price. The price had been paid. And now, Jackson was the next. The vines reached up around him, wrapping around his limbs, pulling him toward the rocking chair where he would join the others. The children watched, their hollow eyes fixed on him. The whispers grew louder, blending into one single terrifying voice. We were the harvest, and now, so are you. The shadows swarmed around him, and the house consumed him. By morning, the house was still, as if nothing had ever happened. But outside, the cornfields were alive, swaying gently in the wind. And the farmhouse door, it creaked open again, waiting for the next one to come. And when the new family arrived, fresh, bright-eyed, unaware, they stepped inside, and the door slammed behind them. Jackson's face stared out from the family portrait, smiling hand in hand with the ghosts of the past. The house had fed again, and now it was satisfied.